The Untold Story of Steven Seagal vs. Jean-Claude Van Damme. In the world of action cinema, few rivalries have reached the mythic proportions of Steven Seagal versus Jean-Claude Van Damme. Two titans of martial arts and action films, both with massive egos, cult followings, and very different philosophies, not just on fighting, but on fame. Their paths crossed in the limelight of the late 80s and early 90s, but behind the scenes, a real-life drama unfolded that would become the stuff of Hollywood legend. This isn't just a story about two movie stars, it's a story of clashing styles, clashing cultures, and a collision of personas so intense it spilled into public altercations, interviews, and even an infamous party showdown. Let's rewind the tape. By the late 1980s, the action film landscape was undergoing a significant transformation. For years, audiences had been captivated by the hulking presence of stars like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, larger-than-life figures who embodied the brute force, firepower-heavy ethos of the genre. Their films were dominated by explosions, machine guns, and sheer physical intimidation. These were cinematic titans who represented the ideal action hero of their time. Muscle-bound, nearly invincible, and often drenched in sweat, grit, and glory. But as the decade progressed, a shift began to take root. Moviegoers started looking for something different, something more visceral, more kinetic, and more authentic. The appetite was growing for a different kind of action hero, one who could fight with speed, technique, and legitimacy, not just bench press a truck or shoot their way out of every situation. That shift opened the door for two unlikely but compelling contenders, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. These men brought martial arts to the mainstream in a way that hadn't been seen in Hollywood before. They weren't bodybuilders with guns, they were fighters, and yet they couldn't have been more different from each other, both in personality and in fighting style. Jean-Claude Van Damme, famously dubbed the Muscles from Brussels, emerged from a background of competitive full-contact karate and kickboxing. Having trained since he was a child, Van Damme was a physical marvel, disciplined, graceful, and gifted with a level of flexibility that bordered on superhuman. His photogenic looks and sculpted physique only amplified his star power. His breakout came with Bloodsport in 1988, a low-budget martial arts film that defied all expectations and became an underground hit. The film introduced audiences to his now signature spinning heel kicks, slow-motion split attacks, and gymnastic agility that looked almost unreal on screen. Overnight, Van Damme became the face of a new kind of action, stylish, athletic, and infused with raw martial prowess. Hollywood is no stranger to egos, but when you have two martial artists turned action stars with something to prove, things are bound to get heated. Seagal quickly made it known that he didn't think highly of his martial arts peers in the film industry. In interviews, he made veiled, and not so veiled, comments about others in the genre. He claimed many were fakes, actors pretending to be martial artists. It didn't take long for people to realize that others included Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Now, who's a tough guy? Do I think Michael is a tough guy? No. Do I think he's a martial artist? No. Do I think Jean-Claude's a tough guy or martial artist? No.
In one infamous interview from the early 90s, Seagal said, Van Damme was not a legitimate martial artist. He couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. Van Damme, not one to hold his tongue, fired back in kind. He dismissed Seagal's Aikido as impractical, more suited to demonstration than real-world combat.
Very nice, very nice.
What about Steven Seagal?
Can you tell Steven Seagal?
Yeah, Steven Seagal.
Okay, okay.
The two began trading jabs through the media. But this wasn't just a battle of words. It was a clash of values. Van Damme represented the high-kicking, crowd-pleasing traditions of cinematic kung fu. Seagal considered himself above that. More grounded, more authentic, more deadly. The feud simmered. Fans took sides. Magazines published comparisons. Who would win in a real fight? Was Seagal's Aikido enough to counter Van Damme's dynamic striking? The fantasy matchup gained mythical status. And then, one night in 1991, it almost happened for real. It was the kind of party only early 90s Hollywood could produce, lavish, loud, and filled with stars. Sylvester Stallone was hosting at his Miami mansion. His guest list? A who's who of action cinema. Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Wesley Snipes, and both Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme. The tension was thick from the start. According to eyewitnesses, Seagal was holding court, telling stories and casting doubt on other martial artists' legitimacy. Van Damme, hearing the remarks, approached. Words were exchanged, voices raised. Van Damme reportedly challenged Seagal to step outside and settle it. Seagal declined, mocking the idea. Later in the night, Van Damme approached him again, more insistent. "Let's go," he said, "right now." Once again, Seagal refused. He reportedly walked out of the party. Stallone, years later, confirmed the story. Van Damme was too strong. Seagal wanted no part of him, he said. That quote traveled fast. For fans, the story cemented the rivalry. For Seagal, it was an embarrassment that haunted his tough guy persona. For Van Damme, it was vindication. The fight never happened, but its shadow loomed large. While the media loved the feud, both stars had more to worry about than each other. Their careers began to follow different trajectories. Van Damme continued making popular films like Kickboxer, Double Impact, and Universal Soldier. He was versatile, playing twins, soldiers, time travelers, but personal struggles began to catch up with him. Behind the scenes, Van Damme was dealing with addiction, multiple divorces, and inconsistent box office results. Seagal, meanwhile, started strong with hits like Hard to Kill and Under Siege. He projected an unshakable confidence, but critics noted that he often played the same character. As time went on, rumors of difficult on-set behavior, inflated ego, and bizarre spiritual claims began to tarnish his image. The two men who once vied for dominance now found themselves on the outside of the Hollywood machine. Direct-to-video releases replaced box office hits. Public interest waned, but their rivalry, strangely, kept them relevant. Beyond the personal feud, there was always a deeper philosophical clash at play. Van Damme and Seagal didn't just have different styles, they had different visions of what martial arts should be. Van Damme saw martial arts as performance. His ballet-like kicks and choreographed fights were designed to thrill. He believed in entertaining the audience, even if it meant exaggerating reality. Seagal saw martial arts as pure discipline. Aikido, with its emphasis on control, balance, and neutralizing aggression, was about real-world combat. He dismissed cinematic flair as fantasy. That debate spilled over into fan forums, martial arts magazines, and even dojo discussions. Who was the better martial artist? The better fighter? The better actor? No clear answer ever came, but the debate itself helped define an era of martial arts cinema. As the years rolled on, the rivalry cooled somewhat.
I would love to see a Steven Seagal in part 3. He should lose some weight. So, no, joke on the side.
Yes.
Van Damme extended olive branches in interviews, saying he respected Seagal's work. He suggested they do a movie together, maybe even a friendly exhibition match for charity. Seagal never responded with equal enthusiasm. In more recent years, Van Damme has spoken with humility about the past. "I respect him. He did what he did in his way," he once said. Seagal, however, has continued to be more dismissive, often doubling down on his criticisms. Age, however, has a way of softening even the hardest edges. Though the fight never happened, and likely never will, fans still speculate, still hope, and still debate. Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme will forever be linked, not just by their martial arts or their movies, but by the tension that defined an era. They represented two opposing sides of action cinema: the philosophical versus the physical, the stoic versus the flamboyant. Their feud was more than tabloid drama. It was symbolic of a larger divide within martial arts itself. And maybe that's why the story resonates even now. It wasn't just about two men who didn't like each other. It was about the collision of two world views. And in that collision, a pop culture legend was born. Today, you'll still see memes asking who would win in a fight, Seagal or Van Damme. You'll still find YouTube videos breaking down their techniques. You'll still hear fans trading stories of that night in Miami, of what could have been. Because sometimes, the fight that never happened becomes the most fascinating one of all.